Okay, guys, so this is take number 3 of me attempting to install my own unit. First things first, I had to remove my ball cap from the second unit. It did not work out the way that I wanted it to. So I'm starting all over from the beginning. Now, to remove my ball cap, I just sprayed a little bit of alcohol on a towel. And then I just basically rubbed that across my hairline and removed it. Now, this question I got a lot from everyone. What did I use to do my bald cap? I used these sheer pantyhose from CVS. But you can definitely use, whatever you choose to use. Now, to get started, I went ahead and put a little bit of got to be spray on my hair to kind of lay it down. And then I cut the toe part about 12 inches up on the pantyhose to allow space for me to put it on my head. Once I put it on my head, I put it over my ear, at which I had ended up getting a run in the stocking anyway. And then on the other side, I just used my scissors and just cut a small hole and put it around the other ear to keep the cap down. Now, I am using a different type of glue this time, but I'm using the method that I saw on another YouTuber's channel, which is Erica J. Shout out to Erica J. Where she used the adhesive on the actual cap for people like myself who sweat or perspire a lot. I decided to use this method instead of the way that I did it before with the got to be spray because the cap did not last long enough for my liking and I'm working out. And then I attempted to use this spatula to lay the glue, but because of the glue that I'm using, this glue was not ideal for this method that I was choosing to use. So I ended up having to go back and do it the other way in regards to the adhesive, which is when I figured out what I was doing wrong. So another one of my stylist friends who work in the salon came by and said, this is another reason why your unit is not lasting long enough. And she said to me that I needed to make a wider space in regards to how much adhesive I was putting on, because the amount of adhesive I put on, once I sweat, it was going to lift off. So I then found that part out. And that's when I learned to make it a lot wider and go farther back on my hairline than I did before. Now, my only fear at this point was, okay, I keep seeing people go bald. When they do it this way, when they do it this way, they go bald. When they do it this way, they go bald. So I was a little skeptical, but in all reality, it actually did work and the unit did last through me working out. It did not remove any hair off my head. I actually was able to lift it off quite easily, even with all the adhesive that I had to put on. Now, once I was done, I did use an oil-free powder to blend my bald cap in. And at this point, I did not cut the end of the cap yet. I went ahead and did the makeup first before I actually went through and cut off the remainder of the cap. Now, I was going to install another unit that I had made, which is that unit you see in my hands, but then I decided no, this was not the unit that I was going to install for that day. So I went ahead and put it back. Yeah, I'm all over the place, you guys, okay? But you get it. So once the cap and everything dried, I went ahead and used my little scissors and cut my cap. And then, of course, like I said in the previous video, please be careful when you're cutting off the cap because you are lifting up the skin and you don't want to mess around and end up cutting the actual skin. I'm like terrified of that. So be careful. And then this time I did not make my cap go down as far as I did before because I ended up having way too much cap in the previous install. So this time around, I did not make sideburns. I actually made it as close to my actual sideburns as possible. And then it made my life a lot easier in regards to the adhesive. Now, the piece that was behind the ear, I did go ahead and cut it off because I really didn't need all of that cap. But what I do recall is when I was installing the unit, I did need as much open space as I could to add my combs into my hair. Now, another thing that I did not do as well as I thought I did in the last install was to clean my forehead off with alcohol. And in the previous install, I did clean my forehead off. Well, not in the previous. When I was taking off the unit, after I took everything off, I did clean my forehead again before I put the cap on. So that's another thing that I did remember when Erica J was doing it, that she did clean the skin before she even put the cap on her head. Now, the glue that I'm using, I could not recall the name because this video was filmed about a week or two ago. So I'm sorry about the name of the glue, but it is clear. I want to say it's something Max, but once I find out, I'll leave it in the comments so you guys can check that glue out. When I did use that adhesive, you do have to allow it to get tacky before you use it. Whereas with like the other adhesives, the white color adhesives, those have to go clear, which kind of is in the same fashion. But in this case, I said, okay, I'm going to try the clear one to see if it worked a little bit better. And then I'm installing my bob unit that I had just taken off because it was already ready for my head. So instead of me doing the curly hair, I did my bob unit. So you guys get to see that. Now there is a comb right at the top of this unit, which is the Missy unit. So I did put the comb in just so I could see everything. And then I put a little bit more makeup on the lace just to make sure that the lace was covered and matching my skin tone. Now, another thing that I do suggest when you're doing this, try to just make sure that you clean as you go along, meaning clean your fingers, clean your combs, because I kept noticing even when I did my first install, everything was everywhere, and a clean install is going to do a lot better. You're going to have much better results. And what I noticed is when I was more organized doing this, I knew where I was going. I knew to, pull my hair back, keeping everything in its place. Now I'm using a metal tip comb, and here is where I also found out that I was not using enough adhesive. And that's when my hairstylist friend came back in and was like, okay, Crystal, you got to put more adhesive on a larger space so that the unit will hold longer. That thin strip is going to hold for the day, and then that's all you're going to have. So when she came in, that's when it was off camera because I had stopped recording. But I did go back about half an inch over the cap where I was installing the unit, and then I was good from there. So you guys definitely make sure that you do use enough adhesive, but don't go overboard. You still want it to make a nice thin layer when you are doing this, okay? And then I made sure that I cleaned up my hairline before I put the cap on. I did notice that I did have a little bit too much adhesive in certain places. So that's another reason why I wanted to make sure that I had enough and not go overboard. And then when you touch it, if it doesn't pull like a string, then you know you have enough. So my stylist friend came and gave me a thumbs up. So that is when you guys see me using this glue. It's called it's like a super glue. It looks like a super glue tube, but it's super lace glue. And that is when I went ahead and placed it all over and went a little farther back so you guys can see how far back I went. When you're doing this, I also learned that you definitely need to do at least 2 to 3 coats of adhesive for this to really lay, especially if you are working out. And then I definitely would recommend making sure you keep your hairline tied down when you are working out because it will still lift if you don't. I know you want to be cute on the treadmill, but keep that hairline covered, please. And then all I did was just use my little spatula that was not working, of course, and went back to my metal tip comb. The clear adhesive actually would be more of my choice of adhesive to use than the other companies. I love my bold hold, but I actually like the clear one a lot better. It dried a lot faster, and it wasn't as much rocket science to it, if that makes sense. So from here, I just used my blow dryer just to make it tacky enough that I could put my unit down on it. You still want it to be nice and tacky. And when I say tacky, when you touch it, you should not have a string of glue coming off with your finger. You should actually touch it and nothing come off and it feels like your finger stuck to it. That is when you know the adhesive is ready for you to place your unit on it. And then you can move forward with the install. Now, I am nowhere near a lace pro. I am learning just like you guys, but I did this video because I wanted to share with you guys all of what I did and did right and did wrong so you can possibly help yourself next time as well. And then I'm just using a little bit of alcohol to clean off the area that had a little bit too much because it kind of stringed over it. And then I thought that I had a little bit get into my eyebrow or whatever they call them, eyelid, and that's when I had to remove it. But I'm using my blow dryer on the cool setting just to get the glue nice and tacky. And when you saw me touch it just now, that is how this glue is supposed to be when it's ready. And then I basically started from the middle and then worked my way down the sides to ensure that I had laid my unit exactly where I wanted it. I actually really like this glue. I'm not even going to tell you guys a story. I really like this glue. I felt like it held a little bit better than the other glue. And, no disrespect or anything to any of the lace glues because everybody has their preference. But this one did a lot better for me out of all of the glues that I've tried. And I've only tried 2. So if you guys can tell, it really just laid down really, really nicely. And I didn't have any type of white residue or anything like that. Now, I know because I had the white residue, it wasn't because of anything to do with the adhesive. I think that was more because I didn't allow it to cure enough at the time that I was doing the install, being a rusher. So I'm not going to blame the adhesive for that. It could also possibly have been that adhesive is a little bit old now. So I needed something else. I needed a newer bottle because it had been sitting there for quite some time. And then I'm just using the back of my comb or the teeth of my comb to press it in. Shout out to my YouTube fam, Carvella, and everybody else that were guiding me when I was learning how to put this unit on. It wasn't this install, but they were like, okay, use your comb, press it in. So I always like to shout you guys out. And then the crazy part is right where you see me using my comb to lay it down is right where I ended up wiping off some of the adhesive, not knowing that it did go this far out. And I'm sorry, you guys, my dog won't stop barking in the background, but just bear with me. I try not to do any videos at home, but it just so happened that I had to do this one here today, so I'm sorry about the dog. Anyway, once I laid down my edges, I actually was in love with my hair. I was in love with this install. I did still have to go through and add a little bit of adhesive to the comb just to get that area to lay down where I wiped off too much of the glue. And then I actually learned in watching a video how to, sorry guys, how to get my hairline to really melt the right way. So the hairstylist friend of mine who works in the salon actually gave me this thing called oh man, here we go. Gave me this thing called a wig band, and you use the wig band, and that actually lays the hairline down a lot more flush than a scarf would. It's really just an elastic band that someone came up with the idea to say, let's call it a wig band. And I'm not a hater. Good concept. I was like, okay, this made a lot of sense. This made life so much simpler. So I'm all for it. Now for me to lay down that little piece of hairline that was left out, I just put a little bit on the metal tip of the comb and just kind of spread it on that area of my hairline to allow it to lay down a lot better. And I mean, I didn't really have to, but I just wanted it to be as flawless as possible. So I'm all for the clear glue. I feel like it worked a lot better for me than the other ones. It held a lot better too, especially with me working out. Now I'm just laying down that other piece. Now, if you guys can't tell, do you see this melt? I did still have a little bit of white residue right there, but do you see the melt? The melt was nice. The Missy unit definitely is a unit that I would recommend for beginners. This unit is definitely a unit that I would recommend for those of you who want to learn how to do your installs. It just makes life so simple because I didn't have to pluck anything. All I had to do was bleach my knots. Now, this is the elastic. So the first time I did it, I was trying to do the baby hair first. This time, I wanted to cure the hairline first before I did anything else. So I put on the elastic and then I used my blow dryer to cure the elastic. And then halfway through is when I took it off, did the baby hair and put it on again. So now you guys can see what it looks like there. Now I didn't allow that piece to dry good. So don't be like me. Be patient. I'm not a patient person. But I did go through and pin it back, and that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and add some baby hair because I want to be able to push it behind my ear. Even though I'm not a baby hair fan, I'm really not. That's when I said, okay, I'll go ahead and add some because I wanted to push one side behind my ear. And I used a little bit of our Elite Silk wrap foam to do so and make life simpler. Now, I did put a little bit of makeup in the area where I had the little white residue. It worked out just fine. And then from there, it was like, okay, use your hot comb and smooth it out, which was very important. I smoothed out my hairline. That was very important. And then I went through and smoothed out my part. Now, I am learning about the temperature of the hot comb when it comes on to smoothing out a unit. It does need to be somewhat hotter than normal, but you don't want it so hot that, of course, it will singe the hair. But I do love the way that it laid the hairline for me. Look at that. Yes, look at that. Definitely my go-to. Definitely. Now, when it came time for me to curl her, you can do one of two things. You can either curl her and use your curling iron, or you can curl her and use a flat iron. It's really your choice. There's really no right or wrong to do this. And then, of course, for my hairline, I still went through and added a little bit more makeup just to make it blend a little bit better. Now, I had a little bit of baby hair stuck under the lace, so that is when I went back and just tried to comb through it. And then I use a little bit of our Elite Silk Wrap Foam now to smooth out those baby hairs, kind of lay them. Now, one thing I noticed, I'm not a pro with baby hair, but I'm always feeling like the lace lifts, and I never see people's lace lift when they do their baby hairs. But I feel like when I did mine, my lace was lifting, and I don't know if that's common or if I was doing something wrong, but I just didn't like that. I felt like, okay, why do people the baby hair look so seamless, but mine look like I was working so hard, or maybe I'm being too heavy-handed. I don't know, but that's just how I felt. Now, once I did the baby hair, I went ahead and put my elastic back on to lay the hairline down and allow that baby hair to dry, which of course is very important. And then from there, that is when I was able to style up my unit while my elastic was on. And then I was ready to go. But so far, so good. I want you guys to kind of like comment and tell me what you think. I do feel like I was being impatient, and that's why I had the little white residue right there in the front, but nothing that makeup couldn't handle. But outside of that, I feel like the Missy unit is the easiest unit I've installed thus far because I did not have to pluck anything. I didn't have to know how to do all of that at all. The hairline of the Missy unit is already 80% density, so it mimics natural hairlines and edges, and then it grows up from there. So from 80% to like 120 or 130 up to 150. Then to 180. So it was more than enough hair to be a full-on bob and not look like you're missing any hair. And it also was thin enough at the hairline for it to look like a natural hairline. For those of us who don't know how to pluck hair on there, I'm not a pro at that. And I feel like you have to be really good at plucking the hairs on the edges to make it look like, your hair. I hate to see people look like they have on a doobie. I feel like the hairline needs to mimic a real hairline. So that was another reason why I did it that way. Now, while my hair was drying from the baby hair, I just was going through and curling it. I did burn my ear at some point or another. So please don't be like me. Be patient. Yeah, I burnt my ear. So, when they say tell the joke on yourself before someone else can tell it, that's what I did. All right, so all I did was just make sure that my hair was nice and smooth. I did not rewash the unit because I only had it on for a day before it started coming off. And now you guys get to see the finished result. Tell me what you think. It came out bomb. Yes, come through, Missy unit. So yes, my unit came out amazing. The install came out amazing. I love the way that it laid this time around. I feel like I had a lot more knowledge this time because trial and error. And then when I laid it behind my ear, it was like, okay. Yes, Crystal, come through with the Missy unit. Missy! Okay, yeah. All right, you guys. But I hope you guys enjoyed this very long tutorial of me learning how to install my unit again for the third time or maybe fourth time. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Oh, and the Missy units are available by going to elitehaircareusa.com, and you will go to the Missy, MISSY units. See you guys in the next video. Bye.